Well, welcome to Noel's World of Whiskey. So, what's this mess of bottles on the table here? Doesn't look like scotch, does it? So, I thought we would maybe do a little presentation of, American whiskeys and bourbons, etc., and maybe talk about the influence of bourbon on the Scotch industry. I did get introduced to bourbon, when I was in my mid-20s, late 20s there. I had a close friend. He was the best man at my wedding. We planned a trip, down to the States. I was still pretty young in that, and I was living on the coast, and I had rebuilt this old 55 Ford Mercury truck. Now, Mercury's not something you're going to find in the States, a Mercury truck. Or Mexico for that matter. So it got a lot of eyes when we traveled south. So I'd redone, it was a 55 Mercury truck, redid everything in it. We had a lower geared rear end in it, and it wasn't good for traveling the distances and highway and all that at decent speeds. So last minute we changed we got into the pot, and we changed the guts in the pot there. And this was literally the day before we were leaving. So the next day we're leaving, and we're heading down the highway, and we hear this noise, and it's the rear end squealing. I'm getting nervous, and we got to Vancouver, heading south across the border. It got quieter and quieter. It wasn't as hot. I was crawling down there feeling the pot, But anyways, that's a little digression. We did get to Seattle, and so we had friends all the way down there, Connor, Seattle. We stopped friends in Oregon. We just worked our way down, towards Santa Barbara, and we took our time, and we were gone for a few months. So, but that trip allowed me to learn a little bit about bourbon, because Mark introduced me to bourbon, and he knew bourbon. But there's a lot of brands there that are around today that I remember sampling and that, and they were so different. And compared to what Canadian whiskey was, there was this perfume smell to it, a cologne smell, and etc., etc. And some of them were quite sweet. Some of them were just so harsh and incredible burn to them, and others were so smooth, So what I learned, I think, was more the taste than trying to analyze. And the interesting thing is that I didn't become an expert on bourbon. I acquired a taste for it. Later, I was doing these trips because of the company I worked for sent me down to these shows and that, because I was a buyer for a company. And I spent time in Vegas quite a few years in a row. I was probably over 20 years, just about 20 years in a row. I was either Vegas or Denver, Salt Lake City, and in these cities, I got back into bourbon, and I started understanding a little more, because by then I knew Scotch. I probably treated Scotch a little bit different than I did when I was younger, and I was kind of exploring and trying to understand it. And so going from the single malts to bourbon, I started to realize, well, geez, a lot of the Scotch, that I drink, when I nose it, it's got a bit of that smell, that bourbon smell, So understanding that, realizing, of course it's, most of that Scotch was cured in bourbon barrels, first filled bourbon barrels and that. And as it is today. More so today, we're seeing the influence of bourbon because it's so affordable, even though we see a lot of experimenting into wine casks and sherry casks. Good sherry casks are horrendously expensive. Having said that, bourbon is a strong influence on Scotch. We should know a little bit about it, because I think your finishes in Scotch are affected. Even if it's a sherry finish, it still has had the majority of its years in a bourbon cask. So if it's a good bourbon cask, a first fill, it's a healthy cask, and there's more healthy bourbon casks than sherry casks, it seems. So let's get into this Knob Creek 12-year-old here. Basically, a Jim Beam company Fred No, famous distiller. Knob Creek was the creek behind Abraham Lincoln's place. I've had a few Knob Creeks. A friend of mine had this 12-year-old, and he says it's good Noel. It's a bit pricey, but it's worth it up here in Canada. Yeah, it's pricey. So it came up for sale. I grabbed a bottle. Now, I've had Weller's 12-year-old. I have not had the Jack Daniels. I hear that's quite spectacular. What was the other one I had was a Pappy. Just gone out of sight price. Both of those have really gotten to be pricey, even in the States. So I'll never see those ones again. But when I look at what is affordable, I'm sort of grabbing something now knowing I might never be able to afford this in the future. So let's get into this guy and let's see what the Knob Creek 12-year-old is all about. Well, it's time to open this puppy here. So let's do the duties here. The Knob Creek caps have a wax top. You notice that little tab that sticks out. It's quite unique. It's the only bottle that I'm aware of that actually does that. And I guess if you're opening these up all the time, you don't take as long as I do. It's got a fairly dark color to it here, so I'll let you take a peek at it. So it's been over 12 years in the barrel, so it has picked up some color. There's your bottle. Well, here we go. I guess that one's okay. Okay, let's give it the pour. Well, let's give it the nose. Oh boy, we've got a bit of a flower garden going on here. It's sweet caramel, toffee, even fruitcake. There's even some grape notes, and I'm getting some spice. Cinnamon, and maybe some of my Scotch spices even, and vanilla. I'm going to say even the nutmeg. Boy, and it's interesting because when I said the flower garden, it's almost something between a flower garden and a haystack. But that nose is quite intense, actually. I could keep going on, but I want to get into this pellet. I spent too much time in my introduction. I would really like to toast my old friend Mark, that introduced me to bourbon many years ago. As I told you in the story, with our 55 Merc heading down to Mexico, or down to to Santa Barbara to his home, and then eventually we ended up in Mexico, and all the places we stopped on the way. There was 4 of us. We covered a lot of miles, and we were very lucky. The old Merc hung in there, and we had an old gypsy camper on the back, and just a lot of good memories. All the way down to San Felipe, Rosarita. But anyways, to my old buddy Mark, cheers. A little bit of sandalwood. I don't usually start off with that in the palate. very, very, the wrong word maybe smooth, let's say no bite. I believe this is 50%, and I'm having a hard time believing it's 50%. Sweet, a lot of sweet notes. I'm getting the nuttiness. Toasted nuts. And some people get the peanuts or peanut butter, but these are toasted nuts, and they're not peanuts. Nice coating on the mouth. Lots of toffee. I've got the vanilla notes, and maybe some cherry licorice. Even a slight bit of the black licorice there too. And fruitcake, quite fruity. Here comes the spices. Lots of cinnamon. And bit of ginger. Some orange peel maybe. Wow. That's all I can say. Wow. This is a bourbon like no other. Okay. Let's go for the development. I'm going to play this like I'm drinking scotch. Okay. The development and the finish. Cheers. A little more spice. This is going to have a longer finish. Nice coating on the mouth. Getting a lot of the wood now. Again, no bite. And it's got something in it that makes me want to have another another sip. So this is heading the right direction. I mentioned sandalwood. And definitely, the wood is sweet, but definitely a long finish. Let's throw a few drops of water on this. And let's just see what happens. So I've got the Johnny Walker eyedropper, but I keep going back to my old metal straw here, so I just seem to be able to control things a little bit better with it. Might as well give it a little bit of nose with the water, see what happens. The old swirl. Oh, I got a blast of spicy, I'd say spicy toffee. Or custard. Now I'm getting some black forest cake. And I always say about it's got that cologne, that sweet cologne smell. I am going to go after the palate with water. Cheers. What is amazing about this drink is at no point has there been a bite in the wood with the aging done. At 50%, you would expect just a slight bit of maybe astringency, but it's like a 43, when it comes to, yet it's full-bodied like a 50 should be. So, I'm not taking anything away from it. When I say it doesn't have a bite, it's got body to it. It's coating my mouth. It's got longevity there to the finish, but it just doesn't. There's a warm feeling here, but it doesn't have a bite. Still have that coating on my mouth. Cinnamon. I'm going to stay with the cinnamon. A bit of nutmeg. Wee bit of pepper. You've got this, I mentioned the licorice, this mix of of cherry and black licorice, and the nuts are still there. It's similar to the Weller's 12 in some respects, except, you know, with the rye notes. Of course, the Weller's has the wheat, but it is similar in that the Weller's didn't really have a bite either. But I'm trying to remember what the Weller's is, if it was 50. But you know, when I go back a ways since I had the Pappy, and you know, I've had numerous bourbons since, but none of them have been at this level here. You know, and of course we know that one of the problems with the availability of Pappy and Weller, well, of course, Weller was a replacement for Pappy, and Buffalo Trace just did not produce enough of those whiskeys. Now it's expanded its facility, but it's going to be 10 plus years before we see abundance of those aged whiskeys again. So let's leave that one alone. I'm going to tell you, I had an opportunity to buy the 15 in the Knob Creek, and it was available a few years back here in Canada, right here on Vancouver Island. And I waited maybe a little too long. When I did go to look for it again, it was gone, and I've never seen it since. So, but anyways, where are we going to put this guy, you know? I think this is a stellar whiskey, and I really believe we're not going to see the price drop in these whiskeys. There's a whiskey boom going on in the States, and so I can whine and complain as much as I want about the price of this stuff. I mean, in all fairness, it is definitely, I would put it as a top-rated whiskey right today, and I'm looking at an 84 to 85 score for this, at least that. So that's where I'm going to leave it. You know, 84, 85. I'll post it. And on that note, I'm going to ask you to drink wisely, drink intelligently, and do not drink and drive. And until the next time, cheers.